Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 23, Disney Livid about Disney. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my brilliant and beautiful co-host, Michelle Whalen.
Well, good evening, my love.
Good evening, dear. We are recording a little off schedule here this week.
Yes, we are. We have some weekend plans coming up, so we didn't want to throw things too off schedule, so that's why we're recording tonight.
We normally record Saturday mornings, and this is a Thursday evening?
It is Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know what day it is.
The week goes by fast.
Sure does.
So we've got a pretty full show today in our Disney Detective. We will talk about Abigail Disney once again expressing her discontent with the company her grandfather founded. Then we will talk about new information coming out about the Disney Plus streaming service. Then Spotify partnering with Disney for some content. And we'll talk about Disneyland honoring a Medal of Honor recipient this week. Then we have the Disney official Mulan teaser trailer to take a look at and dissect a bit.
Sure.
Then in our entertainment news, it is Emmy time. We will be talking about our Emmy nominations, which you'll be talking mostly about. That's outside my area of expertise.
Right.
I'll talk about CBS News and its live streaming of the Apollo 11 launch. Well, not live streaming, I guess, because they're not launching it again, but it's a rebroadcast of the original.
It was a rebroadcast of the original, right.
In honor of the 50th anniversary. Then we have some information about a show that we liked, Good Omens, some community service activity that author Neil Gaiman has been involved in. Then we will move on to our insightful picks. And I think we have some afterthoughts to talk about as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, shall we get to it?
Let's roll with it.
All righty. Go for Disney Detective.
So as we had reported, I guess maybe about a month or so ago, there had been some news reports that came out about Abigail Disney, basically saying what an atrocity it was that, most of the cast members in, the Disney parks were making, barely anything to survive on, where you have, the CEO, his salary $65 million, versus the regular cast members can't even afford to put food on their table. So she actually kind of went undercover. She said she had gotten a bunch of messages on Facebook from distressed workers, and she decided to kind of go undercover and see. She was quoted as saying, "Every single one of these people I talked to were saying, I don't know how I can maintain this face of joy and warmth when I have to go home and forage for food in other people's garbage." She said, "I was so livid when I came out of there because, my grandfather taught me to revere these people that take your tickets and pour your soda." She said, "Those people are just as much the recipe for success." She then directed her criticism, obviously, towards the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, saying that he's just not doing enough to help the company's employees. She says Bob needs to understand he's an employee just the same as the people scrubbing gum off the sidewalk, just as the people that are scrubbing gum off the sidewalk are employees. She says that they are entitled to all the same dignity and human rights that he is.
And I fully applaud her for this. I think she is spot on with her criticisms of Disney and Bob Iger. And I think, this is another example of Disney doing it wrong.
And it almost reminds me of the television show Undercover Boss, where you have these corporations that the people at the top really don't know what it takes to run their company, and they don't know what some of their employees do, and they're the ones that are doing the brunt of the work, and they're the ones that are out with everybody. And now, maybe, I don't know if this is going to change anything. It's probably not, but it's definitely bringing it to light. We're talking about it. There's more news stories about it.
And the thing is, when the disparity of the salary came to light, Disney defended it by saying, Bob Iger has been the reason for our success, and he hasn't. I'm sorry.
Right.
He hasn't come in and done anything that generated the kind of revenue to justify a $65.6 million salary in 2018.
Right.
No one, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, no one can justify a salary at that level.
Right, because at this point you're making an excess of money that you're never going to be able. How are you able to spend that?
Exactly.
When you have people that are going through other people's garbage, and are probably working multiple jobs to put the food on the table.
Yeah.
How can you can't justify it?
Yeah, and the other thing you have to look at is demographics. I mean, Disneyland's in Anaheim.
Right.
That is an exceptionally expensive place to live for cost of living.
Oh, just California in general.
Yes, California in general, but Southern California, where this is located, is incredibly expensive.
Right.
And when the company itself is raking in billions of dollars annually,
Right.
they have absolutely no excuse not to be able to properly compensate their employees for the work that they do. Shame on Disney for even having this become an issue at this point in time. It's really an insult to Walt Disney.
Right.
When you, like the story we talked about last week where Disney refused to allow the family of a deceased young boy who had a terminal disease put Disney images on his tombstone because there's a Disney policy against it. Well, if you're going to go back to a policy that Walt Disney himself created,
then you need to
treat your employees the way that Walt Disney treated his employees.
No,
otherwise you're just a hypocrite at that point.
Right.
So, okay, next.
Next on our Disney plate, Disney Plus streaming service. So more news has come out about that. So the hub is going to obviously have all of the Star Wars movies and the Marvel movies to be able to be streamed. They announced that Avengers Endgame would be available starting December 11th. All Pixar movies and some original shows would obviously be on Disney Plus as well. Then you also have all of the different Marvel spin-offs that are going to be airing, like the Avengers show with Loki. Excuse me. And then you have the show with Scarlet Witch and Vision. They're going to be debuting next year, it looks like. They did announce that The Mandalorian, that they're already getting ready to work on their second season. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Now that won't premiere until November 12th. Now the streaming service will actually go live on November 12th, and it's going to be $7 a month, and it'll be launching in the U.S. Now,
I have to say that's surprisingly reasonable for a Disney rate. And I think Disney is kind of realizing that it's great. We're going to put all of our movies here. We're going to put all the Pixar stuff up. Everything that they're highlighting right now, for the most part, is pre-existing content.
Right. They haven't really announced too many new things yet.
Right.
Besides,
you might have a half dozen to a dozen shows that they've got either in development or that will be releasing with the network. So I think Disney's smart enough to realize we're not offering enough to ask for
anything
beyond, what is the going rate.
Right.
You know,
well, and I think
$10 a month, I think, is the minimum you typically see on streaming
right,
services.
and I think I could definitely see them going back and doing a lot of like the older Disney Channel shows, because in kind of a related thing, Netflix announced that they were going to be losing The Office and Friends, which are their two highest binge watchable shows right now, and those are shows that have been off the air for years now, so I could definitely see them coming and bringing in some of the older content for the kids stuff, and like Hannah Montana and other shows that they had brought certain stars
well, I think one thing that Disney's missing the boat on here is, they're waiting till December 11th to premiere Endgame on the network.
Right. I'm kind of surprised that they're not doing it from right off the bat.
It should be from day. I mean, it's been out, it's been in the theaters long enough to be re-released already.
Right.
So there's no reason not to.
And you figure also by then it's probably already going to come out on DVD.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing. If you're But see, and again, this is Disney greed, where Disney knows that they'll make more money on DVD sales for the first 2 months, 3 months
than on the streaming. Yeah, right. So at least they.
But if you're going to entice me to pay for a subscription service
we already
for
know
your
we're
movies,
going to end up buying it anyway.
I understand that, but if you're going to entice me to pay for a subscription
have a lot of stuff available,
then you
from
need
day
to
one.
Bring out your movies first there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I need to be able to get the movies there. There has to be an exclusive. It's your own damn network. You need to have exclusivity there where I can get it there before I can see it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I can almost guarantee you that $7 a month fee is not going to last more than 12 months.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to jack it up to 10. Look how much, we're offering.
There's going to very quickly come a point where we're going to decide whether or not it's worth having the service. Mm-hmm. And much past $10, it's not worth it to me.
I totally agree. So in other streaming news, it was actually announced yesterday that Spotify was going to be partnering with Disney to create a streaming hub for Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars music. So if you're a big fan of Disney music, Spotify has joined forces, and now you can listen to your favorite Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney tunes 24/7. So no longer do you have to search YouTube, which we were just talking before we started, that YouTube is starting to crack down on
the ability to rip content. From there, or iTunes for your favorite music from different classic movies or TV shows. So now they have a separate hub where you can access everything in one spot. So it actually started yesterday, pretty much all over in the US, UK, Ireland, South Africa, Canada, Australia. Basically, if you just go to Spotify and you search Disney, it'll give you different playlists. So you have Disney hits, Disney favorites, best of Star Wars, songs that you probably didn't even know were either Disney songs or a Star Wars song. And of course, it's free, as long as you don't mind having ads, which is any of the and that's
services.
The part that confuses me in this arrangement here is nothing that Disney does is free. So how is Disney monetizing this?
I don't know. I guess, that if you don't want to have the ads, just like with regular Spotify, that you can pay to have the premium account. And then, but if
Disney's not getting,
No, it's through Spotify. So I don't know.
So
They're obviously making it somewhere.
I'm curious what Disney's getting out of it, but if I was Spotify, I would also go into this relationship with a very cautious attitude.
Right.
Because you look at what happened with the partnership Disney had with Netflix, with their Marvel properties and their movies and everything else. If this turns out to be a popular thing,
maybe they end up breaking off.
Right. And Disney's already launching its own streaming service, so they'll have the infrastructure to support it.
True. So
how long is this relationship going to last before Disney pulls all of its content on Spotify like it did on Netflix?
Well, maybe they're, this is to give them a chance to see how much, pull they have. Because I know that there were different streaming services around where, and it was like music from the rides and, the elevator music and stuff like that. So I wonder, if any of that is going to carry over or if, all of that is still kind of separate.
Yeah. Should be an interesting partnership to watch moving forward.
Definitely. So this was a story that you actually found, was that Disneyland honors the only living Medal of Honor recipient. I can't talk today. From the Iraq War. So they honored this veteran, making him an honorary citizen of the resort. So former U.S. Army Staff Sergeant David Bellavia received the honor during the daily flag retreat ceremony at Disneyland on July 13th. Disney ambassador presented him with a certificate that officially declared him as an honorary citizen of the Disneyland Resort. The ceremony was also attended by Salute, which is Disney's business employees resource group that works with veterans and helps them to transition into civilian life. He said that this was a very patriotic ceremony and that he was very impressed with the way that the Disneyland Resort had treated him and other veterans who have served in other generations across the branches of the military. He was awarded the Medal of Honor back in June. He is the first living Iraq War veteran to be given the prestigious honor after he saved his platoon in 2004 during the Second Battle of Fallujah, which is considered to be the bloodiest conflict for the U.S. troops since the Vietnam War. He said that he felt kind of awkward and uncomfortable in regard to having the spotlight on him. But he said, my commander-in-chief allowed me to bring my soldiers on the stage, and that meant so much to them. That had never happened before in the Medal of Honor ceremony, and it's usually about one person, and he was allowed to make it about his whole team.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was great. That was, Disney,
doing it right.
Disney doing it right. We've shown a few Disney doing it wrong things, and this is a pat on the back to Disney for acknowledging a hero, who was out there actually saving life, putting his life on the line and saving other lives. So,
Yep.
Kudos to Disney, and we thank Staff Sergeant Bellavia for his service.
Absolutely. So now we are going to show the teaser trailer for Disney's Mulan.
We have excellent news. The matchmaker has found you an auspicious match.
It is decided. Come and sit down. It is what is best for our family.
Yes, I will bring honor to us all.
Quiet. Composed. Graceful. Disciplined. These are the qualities we see in a good wife.
These are the qualities we see in Mulan.
It is my duty to fight.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mulan kicks butt.
I could totally see Oscar nominations for cinematography, for costume, for makeup. Looks like a very well-made movie.
Yeah, it really does. It you know, when it's a great story.
It is. It is a fantastic story.
You know, and
not a Disney original either, mind
right?
you.
Not a Disney original, but it looks like they're almost going more towards what the original was like. I don't know if this is going to be a musical or not. They didn't really give you anything.
There was no hint to that in that
you know, like you hear the music that you know from the Disney film, you know, but other than that, it looks like it's really mostly an action film.
They need a cameo from Ming-Na Wen in there, though.
Of course. Now, that would be cool.
That like handing the torch or something
right,
like that.
You know, that she's, you know, one of the elders or
Right.
something. Yeah, that would be really cool.
I do love the fact that they've got Jet Li playing the Emperor.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely looks very cool and, you know, a good cast, you know, so and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all for Disney Detective.
That is it for the Disney Detective. I'm done. See you, bye.
All right, mic drop. Don't drop the mics. They're expensive.
No, they're really expensive. I won't do that.
All right, we have entertainment news.
Yes.
Lots and lots of it.
Lots and lots of it. So the 2019 Emmy list came out, and I tried figuring out what the best way was to go through this. There are just
one at a time.
No, we're actually not. We're not even going to go through all of them because there really is, you know, if you just go scroll through the website, you know, you have so many different categories. If your show didn't get nominated for one thing, then something's really wrong, you know, and it's funny to see things that got nominated. You're like, oh, that came out within this past year. Oh, something I totally forgot about. So obviously, you know, the big noms, you know, came for Game of Thrones, not really much of a surprise, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So the final season of Game of Thrones actually ended up leading the pack with 32 nominations. But then you have all these other really great shows that, you have the majority of the shows picked up multiple, Emmy nominations. So on the comedy front, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel earned 20 nominations. HBO's Barry, Amazon Prime's Fleabag, and Netflix Russian Doll are among the shows that are going to be competing against Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Veep, which is actually in its final season, I believe. And then you have, FX's Posse, and you have BBC America's Killing Eve, and This Is Us. So, there was really no easy way to go through the list, because not only do you have your lead actors and actresses and the guest star, then you have your supporting actor and actress, then they have lead actress in a limited series or a TV movie, then you have your reality show, and you have
there's an awful lot of categories in here.
Right.
What I look at the list now that I was just scrolling through here for the audience, what I take away from that is there's a lot of shows and there's a lot of actors that are from a lot of our insightful picks.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of our insightful picks are actually, part of this. A lot of Netflix stuff, and that's what's kind of nice to see is that, back in the day, it was basically, the major 3 networks really were the
Right.
ones that got everything. Then Fox kind of started to get, a couple of things. And then HBO came in and, because when HBO started, they only played movies. They didn't have original content. And now you have HBO as a big player in it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you got Netflix, you got Hulu now.
Well, see, and I look
Amazon
at that,
Prime.
and I see Bandersnatch on there and a few other Netflix titles on there. And I can't help but wonder who's going to play the angry Steven Spielberg version of television and call for rule changes now.
I don't know, because this has been a while now. So,
But it's funny because this, I guess this sort of highlights the point that Spielberg made, was that, all right, well, Netflix shows really should be listed for Emmys because they're really television shows.
right,
They're not actual movies.
right.
Well, the only thing that distinguishes a Netflix show from a television or movie is whether or not they bother to run it in the movie theaters in the
True.
Los Angeles district.
Right, to be able to go up for an
Right.
Academy Award.
Bandersnatch, obviously you couldn't because it was an interactive movie.
Right.
Which, just as a side note, probably one of the coolest original ideas of pick your own type
was.
things.
It was.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
But, that was a high enough quality movie. If you played it straight through, it could have easily been in the theaters and been up for, an Oscar.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious how they're going to treat that. I mean, is that really a TV show at that point in time? Because you couldn't watch it on TV.
No,
You had to
couldn't.
watch it on an interactive
Right, you had to
streaming
have some
device.
sort of device for it. Yeah. So,
So who's going to complain that that's not a real TV show now?
yeah, I don't know.
There's somebody out there.
I'm sure there'll be somebody. But then again, like I said, if you look at the list, it's so inclusive of, everything. Even, like various guest hosts for Saturday Night Live.
Yes. I saw
Were
Adam
nominated.
Sandler. His one time,
Right,
first time
like
ever,
you
he gets
only
a
had
nomination.
you only have to be on something one time, and you
Right.
could could get it.
It's funny
you know?
because a nomination for one of these awards is a major honor. So it's almost like everybody gets a participation award.
It does
You
kind
know?
of seem that way when you go through the list, but then when you see, like here, the supporting actress, in a drama, 1, 2, 3, 4 are all from Game of Thrones.
Right.
Like you have, one
Right.
show that's kind of dominating.
But like the number of categories, best supporting actor on a TV show that aired on a day that ended in Y. It's like
Well, no, because that is the one thing is that, and that the Academy Awards doesn't really do, is that you have drama, you have comedy, and then I guess as specialized as certain shows became, where it was like, you had, it's not a complete series. There might be only 6 episodes, so it's a limited run or a mini series, and that's what they used to call it, your mini series.
well, like the one thing that got me here is I'm scrolling through the list here, and we have competition series.
Right.
Okay,
Competitive programming.
right, competitive programming. Like, okay, like at one point in time, they were considered reality shows.
Right, and that's because again, each category has grown so much. So
And that's my point, is that it's gotten
and I think
so
one of
granular
the-
now that it's almost ridiculous in the number of awards.
right, and
they
I
give
think
out.
even one of them is like musical or musical variety, show type thing. Yeah,
a variety talk series.
right.
What is a variety talk series?
Those.
So you've
the Daily
so you've
Daily
got
Show.
The Daily Show with Trevor Noah.
Uh-huh.
You've got Jimmy Kimmel. Like, those are talk shows. They're not variety talk shows. So do we have talk shows too as a category?
You probably do.
Like, how ridiculous!
But I
is
don't know.
this?
Are there really any talk shows anymore? You don't really have things like, well, I guess you kind of do.
What
but,
Jimmy Kimmel does is what Johnny Carson did.
right, but that would be considered a variety talk show versus a talk show like Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey and,
But when
like
Johnny
Phil Donahue,
Carson
if
was
anybody
doing
knows.
it wasn't a variety talk show.
Right.
It was a talk show.
Right, exactly. But now it's categorized as a...
Right. So it's a let's change the rules so that everybody can get an
Everybody will
award.
get an award. Well, pretty much
This is
everybody
like, okay,
got at
everyone's
least
in
nominated.
6th grade and we're graduating
Like,
to
if you
7th, so we all get a participation
Like,
award.
if you didn't get nominated, you really kind of suck.
That's exactly it. Like, You're that one kid in class that didn't get called up for anything, you know?
So hopefully,
Maybe that's what they're doing.
the show you like.
That's what it is. So if you didn't get nominated, you're not renewed for next year.
You know what? It could be. You never know. So the 71st Primetime Emmys will actually air live on Sunday, September 22nd at 8 p.m. on Fox.
How exciting. I'm bristling with anticipation.
I know you're putting it on your calendar, aren't you? So in anniversary news, I guess, if you...
Uh-oh, did I forget a date?
No, you're good. You're good. So if you've been living under a rock, or, well, I guess if you haven't been watching PBS...
So that's like 95% of
Well,
America.
I don't know. Some people. The Apollo 11 launch is actually celebrating its 50th anniversary. It was actually on the 16th. So 2 days ago.
And on the 20th, I think they'll be landing on the moon, right?
Right. I believe so. So CBS News was actually live streaming the original Apollo 11 broadcast in real time. But they actually still have it available. If you go to the link in the story, it'll take you to YouTube, and it'll actually show you the full stream.
All right, quick quiz. Who's on the screen now? Who were those two people?
Well, it's Cronkite.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the other...
It's Wally Schirra.
Oh, okay.
Astronaut.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is a prelude to the Insights into History podcast that's currently in development.
Oh, okay. Which I will not be a part of. I'll just do the intro. So on Tuesday, this was broadcasting. And what's really neat is that... you got to see Walter Cronkite live from Florida as it originally aired in 1969. And what's really cool to see also is they have it's not edited, so you can actually see the commercials. If you fast forward through it, you'll see various commercials for toilet bowl cleaner and carpets and cheap trips on Greyhound buses.
Let's listen in for a little bit of Walter Cronkite.
Sure.
38 years old, from Wapakoneta, Ohio. Blonde, blue-eyed, 5 feet 11, 165 pounds. Purdue aeronautical engineer, graduate of 55. 2 sons, Eric, 12, Mark, 6, test pilot of X-15s, a naval aviator, 78 combat missions in Korea. Now a civilian, the man who is to put his foot, man's first foot, on the moon next Monday morning.
My God, how engaging was that? How could you tear your eyes away from the TV watching that?
Well, and that was the thing, the space age back then, it
the man just spent 15 minutes introducing Buzz Armstrong's foot. Okay.
Hey, what's neat about it is that the news interruptions include everything from updates on the Vietnam War to human interest stories about mailman, and it really kind of takes you back, to what things were like 50 years ago. And watching this, and for people like you and me, we weren't born yet, so this is kind of interesting, to see a glimpse, not just part of the launch, but, a full, couple of hours, out of day in the life, 50 years ago.
So it's good history, right?
Yes, it's good history.
Okay. Very cool.
So in a...
plug for history, yay.
Plug for history, yay. So another little feel-good story was that the author of Good Omens, Neil Gaiman, actually helped some students in need. So there was a Twitter user called Trina who hit a rough patch and was experiencing depression, and actually discovered the book Good Omens, and it kind of transformed her life. And she's actually a teacher at a juvenile detention center, and she thought maybe the book would kind of help her students who were kind of struggling this year. So during the last week of school, she showed them the Good Omens TV adaptation, and they were completely moved by the story and just, kind of took it all in that, a demon and an angel could somehow save the world together. And she wanted them to read the book, but she couldn't afford 60 books for her students. So she suggested sending a tweet and tagging Gaiman and seeing if anyone could donate. Well, what happened was better than fiction. He basically shared the tweet with his followers, and soon dozens of strangers stepped in to help, showing the teens that they were not alone. We sent a tweet, and we never expected that it was going to be seen by anybody, and so many people, including Neil, saw it. The story spread, and soon I was in touch with complete strangers, all who cared about my kids and wanted to help them, the teacher had said on Twitter. People from all over the country donated items to the classroom. They had an Amazon wish list, so not only did it include books, but it had art supplies, games, general classroom equipment like sticky notes and calculators, and she was just thrilled that her students were getting something from people,
Right.
that just kind of cared. She said, finally, somebody else was caring about my kids like I do. The system has always been against them, and so much that they don't even believe in themselves, and that's what I was trying to do for them, and now thousands of strangers on Twitter are believing in them too. She said,
cool.
Yeah, she said the past school year had been very difficult. 3 of her former students had actually died due to gang violence. And after being released, they had died in gang violence after being released from the center. So her students kind of felt lost and scared. Is this going to happen to us? And here now they got this outpour of support. From total strangers. She said, I was lucky enough to have this book help me at my lowest point, and to, put it bluntly, it saved me. I thought to end the school year, they needed something fun and something uplifting, and, now that I showed this to them, they not only fell in love with the show, but they fell in love with the book and all the support from people. So
that's awesome.
That was really
awesome.
nice to hear.
Kudos to Neil Gaiman for that, and for everyone else who contributed to that. Mm-hmm. And now I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer about this, but
it's okay.
Where does it go from here?
Yeah.
If the system is failing,
right,
and you got the notoriety that you needed to shine a light on that failure. Mm-hmm.
You
are
need
these
to,
right? That's the system still needs to be fixed.
Right. You need to still,
it's great
look at
that all these
and
people donated all this stuff and gave your kids a shot in the arm here.
Right.
But the real push needs to be to fix the system so that it doesn't get to that point in the future.
Right.
Otherwise, next year you're back in the same position you're in.
No, I agree.
So hopefully this will bring enough attention to it so that the real issues themselves can be fixed. But
yeah.
Kudos to Neil again for that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it for our entertainment news this week. So we shall come back with our insightful picks of the week.
Okay.
Okay, so I will, and as always, turn it over to you, my dear.
Okay, so I can't even believe I'm doing this as my insightful pick. It's so...
Again, they're not necessarily good picks,
right,
but they're
this
insightful.
Is definitely...
If nothing else, it's like a cautionary tale of don't watch it.
Right, exactly. So I'll save you the time, but it's campy. If you're one of those, you need something mindless to watch, not really pay much attention to it, here's a show for you. It's actually just a 32-minute mockumentary starring Stranger Things David Harbour as a fictional version of himself, basically playing himself, his grandfather, and his father. And it's called Frankenstein's Monster Frankenstein. Got that?
Boy, if that doesn't confuse you already.
So it was, like I said, it's a 1 episode, 32-minute mockumentary on Netflix. And it's so campy. That's really what it is. It reminded me a lot of an Orson Welles, 1970s show. So basically, the idea is that he finds some footage, the current David Jr., finds old clips of his father and decides to, do an interview and try and find out what happened to the show. And it seemed, one of the people that starred in the show was accidentally, died in a car crash, and he recreated his office and has a big sign, has hanging up on the wall, that the Joey died in a car accident, and just asking all these questions, and it's just, like I said, it's just campy. In some cases, it actually seemed like it was going on for longer than 32 minutes. But if you're a fan of that, B-movie type genre, this is kind of like, all right, this is cute. I could, watch it. Obviously has nothing to do with Stranger Things or his character or anything. It's just interesting to kind of see him, play himself, but then, play his father and everything. And again, he does like a parody of Orson Welles, and there's these commercials where he's like, eating beef Wellington and declaring, very, much like, the John Lovitz character from Saturday Night Live, I'm acting, and that's how I got into Juilliard is like his catchphrase. And,
right.
But it's kind of funny because like Alfred Molina is in
Doc Ock.
Doc Ock is in it. He plays a role. So there's a couple of, interesting guest starring people in this 32-minute, short where it's just like, all right, that was really campy, and I can't believe I spent 32 minutes watching it, but all right, it was kind of cool.
Well, thank you for saving me that 32 minutes of my life. I appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Well, I'd say that's a good pick, but that would be overly generous, I think. Interesting pick. That was an interesting pick.
We'll go with interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
My pick as well was a from the bottom of the barrel pick. This one actually...
But yours was better, right?
Well, I stumbled across this one. And in prepping for the show, I learned that it's actually from 2013. So it's not exactly cutting edge.
Right.
Which explains why a lot of people they interviewed are dead now, too. So... This was an Amazon Prime Video. It originally aired on PBS.
Hey, a lot of good stuff on PBS.
Hey, I'm telling you.
Just saying.
You see where I get my stuff from, okay?
I know.
And it's a documentary. Big
it is.
shocker.
Wow, I'm shocked.
One of these days, I'll actually re-watch like a scripted television show and do a review on it.
Yep.
This is Superheroes, A Never-Ending Battle. There are 3 one-hour episodes. It's a documentary to examine the draw of the comic book genre and its powerful legacy, as well as the evolution of the characters who leapt from the pages over the last 75 years and their ongoing worldwide cultural impact. It examines the evolution of superhero characters in the comic book industry, chronicling I think your inability to speak is contagious. Chronicling how disposable diversions that cost just a dime became the foundation for a multi-billion-dollar industry whose products are an influential part of our national identity. And to put that into perspective, before I continue, these were originally a dime, and we just had a movie based on these dime comic books that grossed over $1.5 billion, almost $2 billion on a dime investment. Mm-hmm. Follow the fortunes of superheroes from the Depression through Superman's television debut. When was that?
19...
Here's a hint. You were alive when it happened. No, I'm thinking of movie. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say. I wasn't alive back then.
Yeah, I didn't mean to insult
Holy
you.
moly.
Sorry. Forget it.
I know I claim to be a vampire and all.
I was thinking
of
the movie because they did a whole big spiel on Christopher Reeves in the movie and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just edit
Never
that part
mind.
out.
Next.
I'll edit that out in post-production.
Right. No, you won't.
See how superheroes affect and reflect relevant social mores. Track the enthusiasm for superheroes as they're embraced in all media by all demographics. It was an interesting show. They go through and they take you through a history, literally from the beginning of the first comic books before they were even superheroes.
Right.
The pulp novels, the detective novels and stuff like that. They take you through the 30s into the 40s and really the hard times that the comic book industry fell on in the 50s when this Puritan ideal of we can't have violence, you can't show blood, you can't show this, and you had the comics code that was imposed on the industry, and it was to the point that you had legitimate authors who penned under different names because they didn't want the stigma, and Stan Lee being one of them.
Right.
In a kind of a touching interview that he did for the documentary, he talks about. He had always wanted to write the great American novel, and when he did that, he didn't want it to be under the name of a guy who was writing comic books. So he took his pen name of Stan Lee from his Stanley Lieberman, his full name, Stanley Lieberman, which that's what he was going to write his novel under. Right. So he shortened it to Stan Lee, and that's what he did comic books, and, nobody knows him as anything other than Stan Lee. Yeah. So I think it's that's what he was known for. There came a point where he embraced that, and that became who he was. Right.
He didn't need to do the other stuff.
And ultimately we all benefited from that.
We sure did.
So very cool. They're 1-hour episodes. You get through them pretty quick, and this is the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they sort of tease a little bit because you figure Avengers came out in 2012. Right. So they sort of tease that a little bit in here. You don't see all the later movies, which was kind of interesting. The spin that they had, not knowing where it was going to go, and the speculation and character development and stuff. So it was kind of interesting to go back that far and look at it. So it is available on Amazon Prime Video now. For streaming, it is Superheroes, A Never-Ending Battle.
Very cool.
And we have a quick afterthought.
Sure.
And we'll be back for that. So tell us what your afterthought is, dear.
So, again, if you're part of the world of geekdom and conventions and whatnot, today actually starts San Diego Comic-Con 50.
Wow.
If you can believe. I can't even believe it's been around for 50 years. So it's definitely the place now where news happens. This is where we're going to see all the new trailers. We're going to find out a whole bunch of different things about everything and anything, movies and television.
This is the mecca of geekdom.
Yeah, this really is. This is, probably on our bucket list at some point in time to make it out to...
Well, after that disappointment at New York Comic Con, we have to go someplace that does it right.
Right. So I'm sure next week we will have a boatload of news, different things. We know that today the new... What the heck?
I don't know. I don't do sign language, and I'm not even sure what language that was in.
I don't even know. So there, obviously, a bunch of trailers are going to be...
trailer of something, I suspect.
Trailer of something. Cats is going to be coming out tomorrow. So they had the teaser
trailer. Is that really
trailer.
Comic-Con worthy, though, Cats?
I don't know. That's the thing. You got, various different, things. So I can't remember what it was that I was thinking in the top of my head. I probably should have written it down beforehand, but that's okay. So next week we're probably going to have a boatload of stuff to talk about, of what's coming out.
Top Gun.
Top Gun, thank you.
Top Gun.
From San Diego all weekend long. There'll be stuff going on. So, we definitely
all
would
right,
have.
let's cheat a little bit. So you've got the trailer for It Chapter 2's coming out at
Okay.
the con. Jay and Silent Bob reboot
Okay.
is going to premiere. His Dark Materials, I don't know what that one is. That was only listed here. Okay, I guess we'll have to wait for the rest.
Yeah.
Well, that was disappointing.
There's usually some surprises, some, things that people speculate throughout, the coming months. And,
it's the freaky clown one. Penny Whistle, or what's his name?
Pennywise.
Pennywise.
You didn't know that that's what it was?
I didn't see the first one, so I'm probably not going to see the second one. I don't do horror.
Oh, boy.
Not a genre I do.
Yeah. Yeah, so, again, just a heads up that next week is probably going to be pretty chock full of...
Nuts.
Maybe that, too. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. I think that's all we had for this week.
I think it is.
We'll be back next week with some more comic relief.
Yes, we will.
I'll demonstrate how much of a cultural slug that I am and not know who any of these important characters are from Comic-Con.
Yeah, so send us your comments, and
and I think that's all we have.
that's it.
We'll see you all next week.
Have a good one, guys.
Take care.